Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Heart of New York show. I got part two, okay, with ToniJean Kulpinski. And she is a fantastic award winning author, okay, on health and nutrition. And I want to not waste a minute here because there's so much to cover. I want her to briefly go over just a bio for people who didn't watch part one. But right now, part two. Tony, tell them a little bit about you.
Well, my name is ToniJean Kulpinski, and I'm a board-certified holistic practitioner. And when I was a little girl, I was so amazed what my mom did with my grandmother. My grandmother was literally deathly ill, and my mom completely healed her from various health conditions. And it just stayed in my thoughts all my life. And then when I got older, when I was in my 30s and I started to develop a lot of health issues, cancer, I had diabetes, I had thyroid issues, digestive disorders, I started to reflect back on what my mom did with my grandmother, and I went to scripture and found so much information in the Bible how to help myself recover fully from these health conditions, not just put it in remission, not just, do something medical and pop out the cancer or something like that. I wanted to heal like my mom did with my grandmother. And I did exactly that. And I literally defied the medical industry by implementing biblical principles on how to heal my body. And here I am today, disease-free. I don't take any medications, and I lead by the example of perfect health each and every day.
Isn't that something? Isn't that amazing? Let's get into your second book, which is a cookbook, okay? And it's a guide to extraordinary meals.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's really not difficult. I don't want anyone to feel overwhelmed from this information because it's actually about going back to simplicity. And the cookbook, it helps you how to eat better in a simple way by consuming food in the form God created, but how to put it into all the recipes and traditions that you love to share with your friends, your families, for parties and holidays, just like I did with my family. The only thing is we just changed the source of the ingredients because remember, there's nothing wrong with food. It's what has been done to the food that has made us sick. So these recipes are showing you how to eat food in the form God created with the food that you love that can heal your body and taste good.
Eating organic on a budget. What is organic food for people that need to know?
So organically grown food is food that is free of any genetically engineered organisms or genetic modification, free of any kind of chemical fertilizers like fungicides or herbicides. You know, when you see those farmers wear what looks like a hazmat suit to spray the foods that people are eating today, well, he has to wear that suit because he would burn by touching those chemical cocktails that destroy the soil and destroy the food we're eating. So when you eat organically grown, you're eating foods in the form that nature, God intended. And those foods are free of any kind of chemical fertilizers, sewer sludge, genetic modification, any hormones, any antibiotics, any steroids, growth hormones. They're in the form that nature provided. Therefore, your body can live extraordinary by partaking foods in their cleanest form ever.
But why? How did this start? How did everybody start putting all these chemicals, for what reasons, into the foods?
Well,
To
you see,
preserve them? I mean, for what reason?
mass production. Money is certainly not the root of all evil, but the love of money, the love of power, the love of control. And so mass producing, it's not about, growing in the accordance of nature. It's about just profit. And unfortunately, nowadays we have so much food, but we have so little quality. And therefore people are undernourished and starving, yet they're overfed. So we need to really go back to God's original design for our food. And I really believe, unfortunately, and it's sad for me to even say this, that it really started from a corrupt industry, the factory farming industry, the mass production of milk, the mass production of our dairy products, our grains, meat. And you've gone against the ecological system, and therefore our bodies become diseased, or a disconnection of ease. And we need to be back into ease and balance. We want everything to be in homeostasis, where everything is working in proper order.
And you have to understand out there, this might sound like so much to do, but it's a very easy process, and she has a plan that she can show you also that it's a track to run on to make it easy. Just you be open-minded right now and know that this stuff will help you live longer, help healthier, and along with biblical principles which you implement into your plans. let's discuss my favorite parts. Let's talk about healthy desserts.
Awesome. We all love sweets. I believe that's why, God gave us what we call a sweet tooth. So the tongue, look at the tongue for a minute. It's the largest living muscle in the body. It goes all the way into your colon. And on our tongue, there are, and in Chinese medicine, of 5 different flavors. So our tongue actually is looking for sweet, sour, savory, spicy, and salty. We all like those things. And once we can satisfy, we satiate those not only tasteful things that we love to eat to satisfy our cravings, but satiate and satisfy our nutrition requirements as well. So when we hear sweets, we think of, something that's going to be harmful to us. But if we used unrefined sugar, like pure organic sugar cane, if we use raw honey, which is nature's most perfect food, it's mentioned in the Bible over 60 times. It is the food of longevity. It is the food of spirituality and abundance. It says that right in Scripture. So if we start making our sweets, like we do in the recipes in my cookbook, with these types of sweeteners, maple syrup, pure maple syrup, organically grown, is free of all the chemical fertilizers. It actually can bring life force and healing to your body. Your body runs on glucose. Your body doesn't run on protein. Your body doesn't run on fat. Your body runs on glucose. And the body actually needs glycogen storage in order for it to run you. The brain needs, the adrenals need, the cells need, the livers need glycogen.
See, that's what people get misunderstanding. You're saying it runs on glucose, but people are saying, I thought it runs on carbohydrates.
So carbohydrate is the glucose form it runs on, so you're not wrong. A lot of people think that the body runs on fat and protein, and it doesn't. The body cannot convert fat into energy. If we have excess fat in the diet, the body will store it, and then your blood gets thick and sticky, your pressure goes up, and remember, your liver's a filter and your heart is a pump, and when the filter starts getting too congested from too much fat, the pump starts to malfunction. But everyone is in sheer terror of sugar because we have now an anti-sugar, anti-carbohydrate movement. But if we break that down, you're absolutely right. The body needs critical, clean carbohydrates. And believe it or not, when we make, to answer your question, desserts, we want to make sure that they are made from the right sugars. And even fruit. Fruit is the medicinal glucose fuel the body runs on. It is a pre-digested food by nature because it's high in good bacteria. And remember, we need good bacteria for survival. These are bioactive components. So we can actually make wonderful foods known as desserts from these sweeteners and using fruit as well that not only taste delicious to satisfy that sweet tooth, but also satisfy and satiate our nutrition.
Now, in your cookbook, I'm sure that you first of all, your big things are fruit and vegetables, correct?
Yes.
So when you're talking to majority of the viewers out there, they get home from work, and they're saying, now, how am I going to prepare to get the right foods together? It's going to take me forever just to get my dinner together, and I'm too tired. What do you tell people like that?
That you don't have to be a chef in order to make any of these foods. And you don't just have to eat fruits and vegetables. The good news is that food is not the problem. It's about switching the source of your ingredients so you can still make all the foods that you and your family love, just following the principles and the guidelines in the books that help you understand how to get your source of food switched over to the food that God created in the form He created. Because otherwise we're going to have food that is empty of nutrition, high in calories, high in chemicals, and empty in nutrition. And when we have food that's empty in nutrition, we're going to crave more because we're not satisfying and satiating our nutrition requirements.
So if someone came back from work after a long day, and they can get a bowl of vegetables, and that would be like a dinner for them?
So it's more than just that. It's more than just that. You don't have to just have a bowl of vegetables.
And
Although if
you explain all this in your cookbook, right?
Yes.
So it makes it's very easy. She explains it all. Go ahead.
And since my books are a series, they kind of go all the way together with even book 4, even though book 4 has a different title. It explains how you can use certain herbs and spices because that's where all your medicine comes from. That's where a lot of supplements come from, believe it or not. If you look at supplements, they're coming from the herbs, and that's what also gives us our flavor. When we're hungry, we're not looking for fat, we're looking for flavor. And remember, when you use herbs and spices like garlic, if you just steam your vegetables, that might be kind of boring. But if you use the dressings and the different ingredients that I have formatted in that book, or in all of my books, then you can give a lot of flavor to these vegetables and get your family to eat better. Get your family to eat more fruits and vegetables. Because remember, these are the most living foods on planet Earth.
Garlic, you mentioned garlic.
Oh, one of my favorite herbs.
Now, can people fry it in olive oil?
You can lightly cook garlic in olive oil. Why not? It infuses the oil. You just don't want to deep fry because olive oil is a longer chain of carbon atoms, so it's not a heat stable oil. So you don't want to deep fry. You want to lightly cook. When you're using an oil, and again, olive oil is okay for light cooking. You want to use an oil that has a shorter chain of carbon atoms, and that would be the virgin coconut oil. This will give,
Coconut oil.
yeah, this will be more heat stable. But again, you can still keep Italian traditions and different traditions and use light cooking with garlic. I personally love eating garlic raw because it's so full of antimicrobial properties and it's better for you in its raw state.
You mean you just take a clove and start
I
chewing
mince
on
it up. My husband
I'm
will
sure it's
do
not
that.
before you have a session with a
No,
patient.
it's not. But I mince it up and I will put it on top of my food raw, usually at dinner time, about 3 or 4 cloves.
Really, because I
Yeah.
love garlic. There
I
was
do too.
One time I must have had 12 cloves, and then I was on a New York City bus, and everyone moved away from me. And I couldn't figure it out why, because I didn't even notice it on me, but everyone else did. But anyway, is that a healing food,
It's a
garlic?
healing food, and I would like to encourage the viewers to start incorporating something as simple as garlic. But your meals can become more simple when we're using organically sourced ingredients because you don't need as much of them too, because they're more nutrient dense. When the soil is depleted from toxicity from the chemical fertilizers, the food becomes not only less nutritious, toxic and depleted, the food doesn't taste as good. Okay, it loses a lot of the taste as well.
Now, I know in your first book you do this, but in a cookbook, does it, for people that saying, I feel inflammation in my joints, I'm gonna cook this tonight.
Inflammation, first of all, as a holistic practitioner, I don't just treat the problem. I treat the body as one, because it's not about treating disease. That's medical mindset, and that's why nobody heals. So in holistic science, we treat the body as one. Somebody comes to you with stiff joints, they're dealing with maybe fibromyalgia or osteoarthritis or arthritis. You don't want to look at the inflammation as the problem. The inflammation is the immune system's response to the problem. So if you do something that's going to remove the inflammation, you just knock down the immunological response to the problem. So you got to think of not just that meal or that juice that is going to take the inflammation away. You want to look at everything that you're doing. Just eating one meal is not going to make your inflammation go away. Okay? It's not about treating the problem temporarily. It's about making this a lifestyle. So when you're eating whole foods and you're incorporating a lot of the principles and a lot of the recipes in the books, then you're making this a lifestyle and inflammation goes away naturally because now your immune system is not overworking anymore. Inflammation is a response to a problem. Okay? It's not the rooted problem. And when we do eat closer to God's original design, inflammation goes away as a healthy side effect.
That's wonderful. How about salt? Do you put salt in?
I use salt, yes.
Kosher.
Not kosher. So
Kosher.
kosher. Sorry, that was a tongue twister. Kosher is not the source that you want. Now, kosher, anything could be kosher. If you have some salt that is Celtic salt or Himalayan salt or Celtic or Icelandic flake salt, these salts I talk about in book 1, they're all unrefined. They're not bleached. They're not chlorinated. They're in the form God created. Now, if we make it kosher, it's not going to change the fact that it's a healthy source of salt. If you have salt that's been bleached and iodinized, like Morton sea salt, this is also considered as kosher if it's been blessed by a rabbi or it's been prayed over. That's how you make a salt or a product kosher. That doesn't mean that it's healthy. Once again, it is all about the source. What happened to your salt before it got to your dinner table? Whether it's kosher or not, it doesn't mean it's healthy. I repeat that because it still could be bleached and chlorinated and iodinized, just like Morton salt. So you want to make sure your salt is unrefined.
The next thing I want to talk about is timing. Like, when should someone eat? When's the latest you eat before you go to bed?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misinformation, what I call recycled misinformation about nutrition out there that are getting people more and more confused. And that great question is one of them. When are we supposed to eat? I've seen people eating at lunchtime because, it's lunchtime, but they're not hungry, but they're eating because the clock says it. You've got to listen to your body. okay? And you shouldn't go any more than an hour and a half without eating, because you see, clean carbohydrates are fuel for your body. When you run an automobile, you use an automobile, that automobile needs octane for the engine, so the engine can create the performance of the automobile.
Not to cut you off, but you just said you should eat every hour and a half?
Because when you eat the right form of glucose, you're keeping your octane in your physical engine active. Because you can't run an automobile without octane, because it's going to burn out. If you're driving it everywhere, it's eventually going to burn out. And the human body will do the same. So everyone that is using these intermittent fasting and these all-day fasting methods, I don't really feel, and I'm not against fasting, and I talk about that in my 4th book, but the issue is most people nowadays are not in a position to intermittent fast or stay without food, because their adrenals are already overburdened, because the liver is already overburdened from all the vaccines, all the heavy metals and pesticides, all the GMOs, all the nonstick cookware, all the microwaves, all the pasteurized dairies, all the medications. So the liver becomes so overburdened, so the adrenals start to overwork. So if you go too many hours without food, you're starving your cells.
Oh, boy. I tell you, this is just, I hope it's shaking you up like it's shaking me up, but in a good way. In a good way. I want to get right into the 3rd book. I want to get into your guide, because we love dogs. The guide to extraordinary pet care. I mean, what do we do there? I mean, we're not going to start cooking fresh vegetables, fruit for our dog. What do
Well, you might just want to consider doing that. You know, if we look at, I'm an animal lover, and I dedicated the book to my beloved Peanut, who's no longer with us in physical form.
And what did you feed Peanut?
So this is the thing. When we look at dogs and cats, they right away go to the veterinarian. They start getting shot up with all these vaccines. They're given dog food, they're given cat food. And these are the things that are actually contributing to all the shortened lifespan, or even if the animal doesn't live or does live a longer lifespan, unfortunately, these dogs and cats are suffering from diabetes and cancer and bone issues and joint issues and allergies. And we're seeing I don't deal with any of that with any of my pets. I never dealt with that with Peanut. He never had any allergies or any skin conditions or any health issues that most dogs and cats are suffering from today, just like humans, because it's the same science. We have to give our pets food in the form God provided, and the commercial dog foods are not the answers, okay? What they're doing is they're actually depleting the nutrition value of that food by the adulterating, by the high heat processing, by putting everything into gibble. Animals actually do need fruits and vegetables, and in my pet book I talk about the ones that you should avoid and the ones that they should have. And there's very simple recipes that you can actually put together and store and have for your dog. And there's also certain dog foods that you can use that I approve of, that you can implement both. As far as these names of the dog's food that I do recommend, and I do believe that you should do both if you don't want to just 100% prepare foods for your animals, that's fine. A lot of people work a lot of hours. It's hard to do that. I like a company called Honest Kitchen. I like another company called Organics, and that's with an X at the end. There's Newman's Own. And again, there's more listings in the book that I can think of at the top of my head right now. Those are the top 3. And you could do both, though. You could use some of the dog food and you could use some of the recipes and implement both. But giving your dog fruit and your cat fruit actually reduces inflammation, actually helps cleanse their lymphatic system, actually helps with kidney health. And this is something that medical doctors don't push, or veterinarians. And I also work with dogs and cats, and they heal. I've had pets that have had cancer and come to me and were supposed to die in a few weeks and lived 2 and 3 years later just by implementing these principles.
Unbelievable.
There's 4 different foods that you want to be careful with. You do not want to give your dog or your cat. That's, of course, and most people know this, but some people don't. Raisins or grapes, because it's basically a raisin is a grape. Macadamia nuts, okay? Macadamias, I love them, you love them, but they're not good for pets. Also, certain avocados. Now, if it's an American-grown avocado, this is perfectly fine. Again, physiologically, we are different than an animal in that sense. So we could eat things that they cannot eat, and they could eat things that we cannot eat. And so we have macadamia nuts, we have certain types of avocados, we have raisins, and we also have chocolate. They should completely avoid, even raw cacao, any form of chocolate is not good for dogs and cats.
Excellent. Okay. Remember that if you love your dog, which we do, and I hope you love your animals. There was another thing I want to get back to about microwave and non-dairy.
Yeah, so let's touch those topics on non-dairy milks or plant milks. Plant milks are milks that are made from anything that is not coming from a cow or a sheep or a goat. So this would be a nut milk, maybe almond milk you're familiar with, or walnut milk, or there is oat milk, or there's any kind of, again, plant milk. Now, these milks can be perfectly healthy. The issue is when you're buying the plant milks should contain only either the nut or the oats and water. That is it. When you're buying most plant milks on the market today, because nuts are very expensive, they will put a little bit of nuts and then they'll put oils and thickeners to make them resemble milk. And then there's a laundry list now of ingredients in your plant milks that do your body harm. So when you're buying plant milks, you want to make sure there's only 2 or 3 ingredients. The third ingredient could be a little Himalayan salt, could be a little bit of date sugar, could be a little bit of coconut sugar or honey, or it could be a little bit of maple syrup. That's perfectly fine. The best way to assure you that you're getting the right plant milk for yourself and your family is to either make it yourself, which is so simple. You can just make it yourself. You add water and you add the nuts. You make it as thick or thin as you want it. You can add your own sweetener. Secondly, the second best would be my top suggestions, which would be 3 different companies. One is called Malk. Instead of milk, M-I-L-K, it's M-A-L-K. This is a fantastic product. You will see there's only very minimal ingredients in it. Number 2 is a company called Elmhurst. And number 3 is a company called 3 Trees.
Wonderful. And how good or bad is microwave your food?
Very bad. And I talk a lot about, in a chapter called What's Cooking America in my first release, that the microwave is very harmful because it's an electromagnetic energy that actually your food is still cooking in a sense after you've used the microwave. Now, even if you say I'm only heating up my tea, I'm just boiling water in it, that is still harmful because there has actually been studies done where they took 2 of the same plants of the same species and they watered them both every day, but one was watered every day with microwaved water that cooled off, and one was watered with regular water. After 2 weeks, the one that was watered with microwave water died. The other one thrived. So the omitting of energy, electromagnetic fields, is just as bad as the heavy metals in the soil, on the havoc that it causes your immune system, your liver, your kidneys. So you definitely want to avoid the microwave at all costs. Even when you're just running the microwave and you say, I'm going to go in the other room, it's so strong, that energy, it actually goes through the walls. And it can harm the soft tissue of the body, the brain, the breast tissue, the prostate, the ovaries. This in particular can be problematic.
How about this thing that they show on TV now, an air fryer or something, cooked by...
Yeah, so the air fryer is nice because you don't have to use all the fat and oil, which is great, okay? But you've got to just make sure that your air fryers are not, we're using a lot of aluminum or Teflon or any of these unhealthy ingredients. So unfortunately, you want to buy more of the expensive ones. I like a company called Green Pan. You should look into that, even for nonstick, because nonstick for the longest time was a big no-no because of the Teflon and the aluminum. Now you can get it without it. There's a lot of ceramic that they're using now that it's healthy, that's from the earth. So you just want to definitely make sure that your air fryers are without these harmful elements, because again, they're all cancer causing. And as soon as we put heat to a product, it leaches into your food. So you're here trying to eat healthier because you're lowering your fats, in which you should do, and then you're getting all these carcinogenic materials that actually get driven right into your food. So you need to be careful with that.
ToniJean, in closing, tell the audience that this is a simple lifestyle.
It really is. It really is. And you know, simplicity is definitely where we need to go back to. And some of the simple things that you can start doing every day is, first and foremost, you know, love your body. I want you to understand that love is the most important ingredient here. If we learn to put ourselves first, that is the most selfless act that you can do, because you're teaching others how to treat you if you put everybody else ahead of you. So I believe self-love really is a great influence to self-care and healthcare. And one of the things you can do in the morning when you wake up, break your fast with water and fresh lemon. This is a great way to restore tooth enamel, just the opposite of what your dentist is telling you. Number 2, it helps you with liver cleansing. It helps you with digestion. It is the happy fruit. It increases serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine in the brain. After you have your lemon water, have some fresh juice in a juicer, okay? Made in a juicer. Get that life force energy traveling into your cells, which help export poisons that have accumulated over time in your body.
ToniJean, wrap it up. Tell us real quick about your 4th book.
So my 4th book, ToniJean Approved, Principles and Recipes for Extraordinary Health, ToniJean Approved actually became a label in the area where I live. And it's traveling around the world through my book. ToniJean Approved means that it's not only organic, but it's beyond organic, because we need to think beyond organic, because there's a lot of organic foods out there that still contain a lot of unhealthy oils that are still highly processed, high pressure processed, or pasteurized. So we want to make sure that foods are minimally processed and have a lot of not only organic ingredients, but clean ingredients. And the book really does deliver a great message in a very simple, easy, concise format, with each chapter only 1 to 3 pages. So you don't have to do a lot of reading, and it gets right to the point. And then it goes into over 150 of the most delicious, simple, easy recipes, sure to please the palate of your entire family, so you and your family can embark on a journey to extraordinary health. There are meal plan suggestions, there are cleanses done properly, there are also supplement regimens that recommend my top suggestions in supplements, so you and your body can get healthy God's way.
Well, let's talk about everything in moderation does not create health.
Yeah, that's, everyone thinks that, well, if we just eat everything in moderation, maybe even after this show, you might feel overwhelmed a bit and say, well, I'm just going to eat everything in moderation. But that's not the key to great health. Because if we ate everything in moderation, the bad stuff and the good stuff, we're going to have a disease epidemic. And look at, everyone does everything in moderation. And as a result, we have an epidemic of disease worldwide.
How about what's wrong with peanut butter?
So there's nothing wrong with wild or jungle peanut butter, because that's the original peanut, and it's healthy for you. It doesn't contain what is known as afla and myotoxins. Where do these afla and myotoxins? Why is everyone allergic to peanut butter today? Well, again, wild peanut butter is the peanut butter that you're looking for if you are a peanut butter lover. But when you're buying modern peanut butter, whether it's organic or not, that has nothing to do with it. It's the source of peanut that is harmful to us. And that's what contains the afla and myotoxins. That is why, because they're growing out of the accordance of nature. So these are hybridized peanuts that are harmful to us.
Wow. ToniJean, thank you so much again. I hope you got as much out of this as I did, and I'm sure you did. Thank you all for watching. We air in all 5 boroughs and on YouTube. And God bless. Eat right. Listen to her.